Hello everyone. I hope you all are having a wonderful day. I'm Neepam Jain. Besides being a woman, I'm a super mom and a wife, now an energy practitioner. Transforming you to be you is a passion which I follow. So we all go through with a lot of pain, trauma, turbulence in our lives and don't know how to rise above that pain and transform our life. So today I'm super excited to have Louise straight from South Africa who is going to share with us her journey of being a victim to now a thriver and beyond. Louise is a co-author of best-selling books and lot of experience in her coaching and consulting things. So over to you, Louise. So what do you have for our listeners out there today?
Thank you very much. I'm very grateful to be here. And hi, everybody. Hope we can get some sharing information here.
Yes.
So I created a model. So if you don't mind, I'd like to share my screen to show you this model. So if
Yes,
you give me a
please.
second. Okay, so basically what happens is we go through life with normal functioning. Everything's fine, we're all happy, we're all well. And then something happens that disrupts us.
Yeah.
Something, it could be COVID, it could be an accident, it could be you lose your job, it could be a divorce, it could be absolutely anything. You could be attacked, whatever it is, something happens in your life that disrupts you and you become a victim. And what do we mean by a victim is you have all those terrible experiences, the shock, the denial, the blame, the self-blame. Whose fault is it? You may even hate yourself for being in the wrong place, for making a mistake. You might go into a feeling of numbness or shame or guilt or self-doubt. There's a lot of anger, maybe fear for the future, and
Hmm.
definitely depression can hit here. So it's a normal reaction. Once something happens to you, you become a victim.
So tell me, Louis, were you ever in that victim zone? I mean, have you ever
I
experienced being there?
I have been a victim a number of times. Once I was in a business partnership and my partner betrayed me and we lost the business and I landed into some very deep debt. And another time was I was attacked, raped, and left for dead. And
Oh,
definitely I became a victim. It was that shock, that anger, that hatred. I really had all of those
I can
negative
really understand,
reactions.
and you have been there and from there to here.
Yeah, so then we move on to the next phase, and that's where you start bargaining, you start having a dialogue, you start reaching out to others to help you, and you start building yourself into a survivor. And it's important that you know that it's not a straight journey. It's a very convoluted journey up and
Hmm.
down and backwards. And you think, yes, I'm getting better. And then suddenly you find yourself back right where you started with that anger or that fear, whatever that emotion is that you are experiencing.
Okay. So give me one step on becoming a survivor. How one can transcend from a victim to a survivor zone.
Okay, so that is where I say it's starting to reach out, asking people to help. Look for support. Look for somebody who you can talk to, be it a friend, be it a therapist, but get somebody that can be there for you without judgment or without any kind of telling you what to do. And it's also that you start that dialogue, you start that bargaining. With me, after I was raped, it was at the time when the South African Constitution was changing. And I went and I lobbied and I became an activist and I got petitions going to have the law changed to stop
Yes.
rapists from getting bail and from being let out on early parole. So that helps you survive. Surviving is a struggle. And when you're doing something to work through that struggle, that is
Hmm.
when you start surviving.
Okay, wow. And actually, speaking up, looking, and just expressing yourself, it is the need of time. I mean, everywhere you're just seeing that. And I think that's a very, very good advice you have given to us.
Yeah, it's so important that you reach out.
Can
And
one
then
learn resilience?
yeah, so then you go into resilience. And what resilience is when you bounce back. It's the next step after survivor, where you bounce back to where you were before. So you're in victim and you're feeling sorry for yourself, and then you're struggling to get out of that mode. And then you bounce back and you get back to where you were. And so that is where you accept what has happened to you. Yes, I was raped. It was a horrible, horrible experience, but I can't change it. It happened. I lost my business. I can't change it. I can't get it back. It's gone. And you have to accept that. And you've got to be a bit optimistic with it and say, okay, it happened. And let's be creative. How can we learn from this? What can we do with this information? So resilience is really about looking after yourself, making sure that you've got a positive attitude, getting your health into, being physically healthy, mentally healthy, emotionally healthy. So resilience is right. It's just looking after yourself.
Wow. Okay, that's
So,
good.
and then through that, you build a level of strength that helps carry you forward.
Okay.
And then after resilience, and again, it's a convoluted journey, and you may, even while you in that place, something triggers you and you go all the way back to fear or anger. So
Yes.
so in my case, I was raped. It was a violent rape. So somebody can come up behind me and give me a fright, and immediately it brings back that fear. What is going to happen next? So it happens, you will go backwards and forwards, and your journey is not a straightforward journey.
Yes, it's always ups and downs, but building and coming out of it, that as you are explaining, like the resilience and speaking up and looking for help. Yeah.
Absolutely. The next phase is what is we call grit. And that's where resilience is bouncing back to where you were. Grit is bouncing forward to a new future. So I lost my business. So I
Yes.
went through a period where, oh, woe is me, I'm poor, I've got no job, I've got no company. Um, but bouncing forward, then you say, well, what am I going to do about it? What is my next step? So this is where you get your aspirations, you start dreaming about the future, you set some real smart goals, you explore options, and you start moving forward. And
Yeah.
once you get into this phase, it gets so much better because you don't go back so often
Yeah.
anymore. You don't fall back, and it becomes a little bit easier going forward. So that's great. And then from there, you start achieving a little bit of success, you get your self esteem back, you feel empowered, and that is when you start to thrive. Uh,
Wow.
and and it could take a year, it could take 6 months, it could take 10 years.
Okay.
But once you focus on that positive future, you will start thriving. You will start, and I don't mean only success in business, success just in your own self awareness. You know who you are, you know where you're going, you feel good about yourself, and that self esteem comes back.
Yeah.
Then, oops, the next step is where you start learning from your mistakes. Okay, I was in a business, in a partnership. What did I learn from that? What were the lessons? And what can I do with that information that I've got? How can I move forward and learn and start helping other people? And that's where you get real strength. We call it a growth mindset, where you start really going forward in a positive way, looking for challenges, looking for meaning. And when you give back, that is when you get a benefit mindset. So, a lot of people who've experienced a lot of trauma at some point start sharing their journey to help other people overcome.
Yes.
So that's where what this is now. It's I'm sharing my journey because I know you can learn and other people can learn from my journey, and I can help them recover as well.
Yes, definitely.
And
So,
then
yeah,
carry on.
yeah, no, just continue.
And then my final step for me is the most important step. And that is where you learn to forgive not only yourself, but the other person. So for example, my business partner, it was maybe a couple of years later, I actually forgave him. I had a meeting with him and I asked him why he did what he did. He explained it and I forgave him. And it's the
Wow,
most
that,
it's the most powerful feeling to be able to say, it's okay, I forgive you. It doesn't mean I have to be a friend of yours. It doesn't mean we have to ever work together again, but I don't need to carry that burden. And the biggest thing for me was 14 years after I was raped, I went to the prison. The rapist had been given a 25-year sentence. I went to the prison and I forgave the rapist.
that
I
is.
cannot
How did
tell
you
you.
get this? How did you find the freedom from all this, the journey which you have been through from that 25 years and being raped and forgiving? I think forgiving is really difficult.
It's actually the actual process of forgiving is not that difficult. It's the decision to forgive that is the difficult part. But what it does, it helps you fly to freedom. It really gives you that incredible, incredible freedom. And when I forgave the rapist, I went to the prison. And the most amazing thing about that experience was, and I'm going to just stop my share here. And I just looked at them and I said, I don't want to know. I actually don't want to know because what happened by forgiving, I broke that bond, that tie that was holding me to him, that was making me go back into that victim or that survivor mode. And by forgiving, I actually broke that tie and I could move away with complete freedom. And I flew out of that prison. I actually can't express that feeling that I had and still have today about breaking that bond and that tie to that dreadful experience, that dreadful situation that I found myself in. And I found myself truly, truly free to go on with my life.
So just being into that forgiveness zone, you achieve your freedom. So how is that possible? I mean, how? I mean, it looks such a simple, tiny word, but
As I said, the process is actually quite easy because you just say it. You just you actually say, "I forgive you." Um, I in my forgiveness, I actually prepared a long speech which I read, which I don't think he understood, but it wasn't for him; it was for me. And so it's about it's like an impact statement. So you give a statement saying this is how that experience impacted my life. It impacted me physically because I was very badly injured. It impacted me financially because my partner betrayed me after this. And so I lost the business. So it impacted me financially, emotionally, because I hated and I was in all that victim mode and all those emotional things. Spiritually, you don't believe in anybody or anything anymore. So you go through your impact statements and say, this is what you did to me. And then you just say, it is not my concern what happens to you. And I release you. I release you to your higher good, to whatever you believe in. I release you to that. And I take back control of my outside the country at the time. And I was going home for a holiday, and I don't know what possessed me to phone the authorities and ask them, was this guy still in prison? And they said, yes, he was due for his parole hearing on the 9th of October. And I just thought this is too much of a coincidence because I'm landing on the 8th of October, a day before the parole hearing. And the law had just changed in South Africa, allowing what they call victims to attend a parole hearing to give their input as to whether the person should or should not get parole. And I just thought, this is too much of a coincidence. I must go. And everyone said, don't go. And why are you going? And I just said, I must go. And then somebody said to me, forgive. And I said, don't be silly. I'm not going to forgive him.
Yeah.
Um, and I had no idea. And then I did a little bit of research and I thought, okay, let's just prepare something in case. And so I hadn't made up my mind to forgive. But when I got there, it was just the right thing to do. Um, so, as I say, the decision is the hardest part. The actual forgiving is much easier.
Yes.
So,
True.
so
So
I was the
true.
first person in South Africa to actually attend a parole hearing and to forgive. So it was quite an
Wow.
experience.
Wow. That is something. So, what do you have for our listeners? Like, what is it? One thing you will tell them that please have this, or which can really transform their life.
Well, it's important that you know that you're not alone, that there are people, there's groups, there's therapists, whatever you choose, and there's no right or wrong way. It's your journey, it's your journey of healing. So you need to choose how and when and who you go with. Don't compare yourself to anybody else's journey. But do find somebody, some group, some therapist who can just be there for you because you are not alone.
Yes. So, can you talk about more about that being in that survivor zone? I mean, how?
Uh,
Yeah,
that
I
is
would.
that is that is the struggle. That is the struggle, and most people will spend most of their time between victim and survivor mode. Want to change the world. I was so angry that this had happened to me. And so I was out there lobbying and getting petitions drawn up and going to see police commissioners and really trying to change the world. And I went very public with my story to try and make a difference. And you know what happened there was quite interesting because everybody was saying to me, Lois, you're so strong, you're so brave, we're so proud of you. And I felt really good. Look at me, I'm so strong and so brave, having survived this ordeal. And what happened was about 2 years later, one morning I was physically, I just couldn't get up. My back, my leg, I was actually paralyzed. And I went to the doctors and they did all the MRI scans and what have you. And they said I needed a back operation. So I went into hospital. I had a back operation. It failed. I had a second back operation. It failed. I was sent home. I was bedridden. I was incapacitated for 6 months. I really just could not get better. And I thought, well, this is my new life. And then my sister, who was a healer, she said to me that I'm enjoying this attention that I'm getting by being in bed. Everybody's running after me and fetching and carrying. And basically, what it was, I wasn't facing, because I was so strong and brave during the rape, I hadn't actually faced the fact that I needed to be weak. I hadn't spent enough time in the victim mode. I'd gone straight into survivor, and I needed to experience all that sadness and heartbreak, and I hadn't. So I put it all behind me until eventually my back just said, I can't take it anymore, and collapsed. And
So,
I lay in bed.
can you just tell me a little more about this? You're enjoying this mode. When your sister said you're enjoying this mode, so what is it? I mean, how can one enjoy the suffering they're going through?
Because it was so lovely for everybody to fuss over me and to fetch and carry. And I could just lie there and say, oh, look, everybody's taking care of me. After I'd been so strong, I needed to be weak for a little bit. And so I just lay there, and it was amazing because there was nothing wrong with my back. Later, doctors looked at my X-rays and said there was nothing wrong with my back. It was all here. It was all
Okay.
psychosomatic, and I hadn't gone through the process. And this forced me to acknowledge those things, and I dealt with it then. The surgeon had told me that I was a scuba diver and a hiker, and the
Okay.
surgeon told me I would never scuba dive or hike again because I could never carry anything on my back. Well, after I had that realization, I went for 8 chiropractic treatments, and I did a 5-day hike with a 29-kilogram backpack on my back.
That is super. Wow.
So it just shows the power of the mind over the body. And part of the healing process when you're going through that victim mode and into the survivor mode is you need to accept that experience, acknowledge that pain. So I'm angry. Why am I angry? Who made me angry? And live with it. Don't just say, ah, it's okay, I'm okay.
Yeah.
You need to accept it, and you need to feel the pain, acknowledge the pain, rate it on a scale out of 10, and then slowly bring that pain down and replace it with something more positive.
So, tell me, how do you replace the pain? I mean, can you give just one tip so how we can acknowledge the pain, the what trauma or whatever we are going through, and just bring down the scale? How one can do that?
Okay, so if we let's just take anger. So I'm angry at that rapist for being there. So I'm really angry. It's a 10 out of 10, and I'm really angry. So
Right.
you sit there with that anger and you say, how does it feel? It makes me want to kill. It makes me want to and really feel that anger. What does it smell like? It smells like blood. What does it feel like? It feels like something gooey,
Yucky. Yes.
and really put all your emotions, all your senses into what it feels, and just say, it's okay. I'm allowed to be angry. It's okay. This is how I feel. And then say, right now, how can I bring it down to a 9? What can I replace? What is the opposite of anger? Compassion. How can I have compassion for this guy? He was just dreadful. And then you start thinking, well, maybe he was had a terrible childhood, and then you start thinking, well, he was raped or he was bullied or something. And just when you start thinking like that, you can bring it down to a 9.
Wow.
Okay. And then you can say, all right, now what feeling do I want other than anger? I want love. So maybe I'm not going to love him, but where else can I find love? So I'll say, well, I need to love other men. I don't have to hate
Yeah.
all men. I need to love other men and get a picture of a lovely man that I can be friends with and love. And then by putting that picture in your mind, it suddenly comes down from a 9 to maybe a 7 or even a 6. And so you put in other positive thoughts in place of the negative thoughts.
Yeah, that's really amazing. And I'm so glad that I could have that knowledge today from you. So, thank you so much for sharing this. It was phenomenal to have you here with me. And how did I get so lucky to experience the journey which you have transformed yourself from the victim to survivor and the thriver beyond? So, and she's such a gift. She is giving all our listeners a freebie, and the description is in the link below, which is if they need to connect, how they can do it.
Okay, they can connect with me via my Facebook. I've got and or my web called Walking Without Skin.
Okay,
Walking Without Skin.
okay, walking
That's,
without skin.
yeah,
Okay,
it's not too difficult to find.
yes, yes, yes. So thank you for being on call with me today. Thank you, all my listeners. We'll see you soon.